Stephen Miller wakes up every morning, presumably at 4:30 in the morning, like a vampire, fully dressed in a poorly tailored suit, and immediately begins thinking about people he's never met and would very much like to remove from this country. This is fact. This is more or less how people who work with him describe him and his whole personality and Stephen Millerisms. And for a while, a very surprisingly long while, it was fine. Great, even by the standards of people who hate other people and hired him. But something is shifting. We're watching Pam Bondi and Christine No and all the evil, chaotic monsters get taken down one by one. And the question being asked in Washington is not so much anymore what Stephen Little Bitch Miller will do next. It's how much longer can Stephen Little Bitch Miller hold on? How much longer can he survive in this role? And real quick, I'm Lauren Paritra. Willa Paritra is behind me, ready to get the ball tossed at any moment. And we currently have a lead on Katie Miller. It is a growing lead, but it's never, not too close for comfort. So we're going to ask you to please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us at I am Lauren P across all social channels and soon where you listen to. And consider every action, every sub, every hype, every comment, every 6 words or more comment, every share, every save. Consider every action and F you to Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller. So let's walk through who this guy is. So Stephen Mr. Little Bitch Miller is Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff for policy and the primary architect of this administration's immigration agenda. He's also technically the director of Interrogancy Homeland Security Council, which was a post 9/11 structure originally designed to coordinate responses to terrorism that Miller has repurposed into a daily war room to track deportation numbers. Steve Bannon, also somebody who you would never want to be alone in a room with or in a hallway with, calls him Trump's prime minister, which is a gross visual. And the White House press secretary describes a reoccurring scene where Trump looks around the Oval Office and asks, "Where's Stephen Little Bitch Miller?" and tells somebody to go get him. This is apparently how Trump gets his policy made. He's also held this role since 2017. So while other Trump officials have come and gone, gotten the boot, gotten fired, gotten humiliated, indicted, or simply just evaporated into thin air, Stephen Little Bitch Miller has held on and remained and stood the test of time. Like a particularly motivated barnacle. His influence extends across virtually every federal agency with any connection to immigration. So we're talking about ICE, CBP, the FBI, HHS, and the Department of Defense. He runs a daily 10 a.m. conference call, including on Saturdays, where he issues demands, receives progress reports on all the terror and how many kindergartners they pepper sprayed that week, and yells at everyone involved. Literally everyone. There are no exceptions. One senior official put it plainly. He gets on the phone and he yells at everyone. Nobody is spared from his wrath. That's a direct quote. Another participant noted that if you say something he finds inadequate, he'll tell you that to your face and that there's no getting back to him. There's only performing at the expected level immediately or facing the consequences, like a bitter little vampire. And to understand why Miller is where he is, we've covered in great detail his villain origin story, but you have to also understand what he actually wants. He wants to halt and reverse America's post-1960s immigration boom. He has described legal immigration from non-majority white, non-Christian nation as the Somalification of America. Mind you, he is the direct descendant of Jewish refugees. He's promoted material from a 1973 French novel popular in white nationalist circles. We also have previously talked about his yearbook quote. And when Trump joked that if Miller had his way, everyone would look exactly like him, Miller replied, "That's correct. This is we also have previously about in a 2003 school bus video, which recently resurfaced over the last 5-6 months, a 17-year-old Mr. Bitch can be seen arguing with a visible delight that torture is a celebration of life and human dignity. He briefly cannot contain his satisfaction at having said this. His mouth widens into what can only be described as an evil grin. This is the man who has been consistent in his terrifyingly, admirably, exhaustingly consistent in his terror on the most vulnerable people in our country. He also has recast American politics as a war between forces of wickedness and evil. and virtuous people who trace their lineage, in his words, back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, and to Monticello. He also has called federal judges who ruled against the administration guilty of legal insurrection. He has described the Democratic Party as a domestic extremist organization. Even allies describe him as acquired taste. One colleague, trying to be complimentary, compared his bedside manner to that of Heinrich Himmler. And so have you all. You guys have said that a lot. Miller, let's also just kind of zoom out and talk about the numbers for a second. Miller told ICE officials he wanted 3,000 immigration arrests per day. This is the man who's responsible for all this. Nearly 10 times the agency's 2024 rate. 1 million deportations a year. He said this last year. He wanted to double ICE's workforce from 10,000, or he wanted to double the ICE workforce to 10,000 new officers. He demanded daily updates on the detention capacity, deportation flights, and border crossings and hiring numbers. Here's what has reportedly actually happened: somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 deportations in the last year, roughly a quarter of the goal. Miller is not pleased. He wants more kindergartners in cages. And he has reportedly been berating Todd Lyons, the acting head of ICE, on private conference calls with such intensity that Lyons has been hospitalized twice due to stress-related episodes. Resistance is always an option. Mr. Lyons, we're ready when you are. So this man, whose job is enforcing what Miller wants enforced, has been stress hospitalized because of these calls. Sit with that for a second. And in Washington, there are leaks. Leaks are language. So when somebody leaks something to Politico, the acting ICE director is being hospitalized due to Miller's conference call behavior. That is not an accident. Somebody wanted that out there. So when the Wall Street Journal reports that Trump is privately telling advisors he wants a new approach, wink, wink, on immigration and wants people to stop using the words mass deportation, that is also not an accident. And when the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, who attended Miller's 40th birthday party at a members-only club in Washington, surrounded by cabinet members and the worst secretaries of all time and House speakers, begins telling people the deportation agenda has become a midterm liability, that is the sound of ground shifting beneath somebody's crusty little feet. The people leaking are not doing Miller any favors. They're making sure everyone, including the president, knows that the project is becoming a political catastrophe. And here's the reality. For the most part of the past several years, border security was Trump's strongest issues to people who hated immigrants. When other numbers sagged, people trusted him on this. That is now gone. A recent national poll found that Trump went under on border security for the first time. Miller happened. His insistence on maximizing the numbers, not just targeting criminals, but sweeping up anyone with an accent, racially profiling, going to kindergartners, picking up elementary school students, putting them in prison. It turns out that wasn't such a popular idea after all. And something so abstract in Stephen Littlebitch Miller's evil villain layer, when it actually started happening to communities, people were pissed. So we saw this go down at Home Depots. We saw it at school bus stops. We saw it at immigration appointments. We're watching it go down at airports now. It's insane. And so to hit the volume that Miller needed, Miller cannot limit himself to just criminals. He has to go after everyone. He has to sweep up everyone. He needs the numbers to prove that mass deportation works, which it doesn't. The numbers require tactics that prove it's unpopular. His own first term provided a preview. He pushed the family separation policy, which was long considered to be too extreme to implement. It triggered such a backlash that Trump's own wife and eldest daughter allegedly urged him to stop. It became the defining image of Trump's first term and undermined his ability to run on immigration in 2020. He's now, carrying out his vision of a larger version of that. And this is where shit gets really heated up. Miller's still there. He still has money, staff, a wife who he may or may not got cucked by Elon Musk, a wife with a podcast, and they're expanding detention capacity, and a president who has not yet publicly turned on him, but something is going down soon. We have reason to believe. I'd put my money on it if I was a betting woman. So he survived the family separation, the sidewalk chalk, the first term. He was on a call helping Trump write the speech attacking Mike Pence on January 6th, while his own wife was employed by Pence's office and then went on to be employed by Elon Musk if you can think about that career trajectory, the career trajectory from absolute hell, from the depths of hell. Miller survived all of this, but Trump keeps people around as long as they're serving him. And Trump's commitment to immigration has always been the most performative thing, more performative than his philosophy. He stumbled onto this build the wall as a crowd response, and he kept using it because it worked for people. And if it stops working, if Wiles is telling him it's a midterm disaster and the polls show him underwater on his best issue, the calculus changes. So Trump responds to polling. Right now, the polling is saying this: it's not working. Stephen Little Bitch Miller is 40 years old. He looks like he was gestated in a basement. He looks like he survives on a diet of sunscreen and mayonnaise alone. And he has wanted precisely this since he was a teenager on a school bus arguing that torture celebrates human dignity. And since he ran a white manifesto in his high school, since he had a white nationalist yearbook quote, this is his fix. So he has spent decades being the most durable, evil person in the White House in a room full of people that didn't last. And he may outlast this moment, but it doesn't look like it's going to go down that way. The people around him are no longer keeping quiet. They're making sure everyone, including the president, knows that his little project is faltering. And the man running these Saturday morning calls, giving the acting ICE director a medical crisis. The question, as one observer framed it, is Stephen Miller the host of The Apprentice, or is he a guest? Because if he's the host, we have 3 more years of this garbage. But if he's a guest, if Trump eventually concludes that the liability outweighs the loyal, the man who spent a decade turning the president's incendiary impulses into policy may find out what it's like when the decision goes the other way, which is at minimum a development worth watching. We do this work out of the goodness of our heart, but mostly because we just so happen to find talking shit about Stephen Little Bitch Miller a deeply, deeply restorative practice. As somebody who I lived in his community, the community that he's from, for over 10 years, and I'm still tapped in over there. We've got to band together. If there's one thing that can bring us together, it's taking Stephen Little Bitch Miller and Katie Miller down. So subscribe, hype, find us across all social channels, find us where you get your podcasts, where you listen, and we'll be back with more.